This is KGW News at noon.
We start here at noon with a group of Alaska Airlines flight attendants picketing today at PDX. You can see them right there on your screen in the departures area inside and outside the airport today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Christine Pitawanich. The Flight Attendants Union is negotiating a new contract with Alaska. They're asking for more pay, schedule flexibility as well. Attendants also want the airline to pay them for all the hours they work. So right now, their union says attendants are considered off the clock during boarding, deplaning, and in between flights. Today's picketing is not expected to impact travel. Meantime, more than 200,000 Oregonians may have to look for a new doctor next month because of an ongoing insurance dispute. It's between Regence Blue Cross Blue Shield Insurance and Providence Hospitals. Providence wants the insurance company to pay out more money to keep up with rising healthcare costs and wages. If both sides don't reach an agreement on reimbursement rates by January 15th, people who have Regence would no longer be covered at Providence facilities, and they'd have to pay out-of-network rates.
It would probably mean we'd have to travel outside of the city to get programs like that for us, or could also mean that we'd have to pay more than we do right now out of pocket.
Providence said in a statement that it is working to combat rising costs, but still needs to adequately pay its staff. In a previous press release, Regence said paying Providence the additional money it originally requested would mean higher premiums and out-of-pocket costs for customers. And to another big story we've been following, the 3 men who died in the plane crash over the weekend in Independence, Oregon, were Afghan refugees. And as Catherine Cook found out, they worked alongside the U.S. military.
We lost 3 members of our family.
3 men, 3 pilots, 3 lives lost in a plane crash in Independence Saturday evening. Cell phone video shows the fiery wreckage. Inside the plane, Mohammed Hussein Musawi, Ali John Ferdowsi, and Mohammed Bashir Safdari. All 3 were Afghan Air Force officers who served with the U.S. military until the Taliban took over Afghanistan in 2021. As refugees, the U.S. granted them asylum for their work.
They were heroes. They were rebuilding their lives. They were transitioning from military aviation to commercial aviation in the United States.
Russ Pritchard is CEO of the Afghan American Development Group. The nonprofit helps former Afghan personnel with resettlement, job training, and family reunification.
They may have been career professionals in their country, as in military aviation, and they're here now as Uber Eats drivers and working night shift for Amazon. And that's why we work so hard to serve them.
Local nonprofit Salem for Refugees resettled the men here in spring of 2022. They tell KGW the pilots were part of a growing Afghan community that's devastated by the loss. The men were in a pilot training program sponsored by the nonprofit. Their deaths have touched many, including lawmakers. In a statement, Senator Jeff Merkley wrote, "This is a heartbreaking tragedy, and my thoughts are with the victims' families and loved ones. My office stands ready if there are ways to help their families during this difficult time." Salem for Refugees and the Afghan American Development Group both started GoFundMes to support the pilots' families and pay for funeral expenses. Pritchard says each of the men killed in the crash was married and had children back home, families they'd been supporting and dreaming of bringing to the United States. He says hundreds of others are still trying to do the same.
These men and women deserve to have their families with them. You know, they a final act of heroism to prevent weapons from falling into the hands of the Taliban, our enemies for 20 years. We owe it to them to get their families together.
Catherine Cook, KGW News.
Okay, before we get to Rod in the Weather Center, take a look at this video. People getting blown around. You can see the camera getting blown around too. This is at Crown Point yesterday. Yeah, definitely. It's been windy in the gorge as of late, but on Sunday, Crown Point had hurricane force winds. And Rod, I know that, we expect this type of thing up at Crown Point, but it's still fun to see people getting blown around.
It's absolutely our own local weather amusement park. It really is. People drive out there just for the sensation of the wind. Now realize that wind is pretty specific to a horizontal plane at a certain elevation that Can hit Corbett at times, certainly hits Crown Point. Down along the Columbia River into Troutdale, winds were more like 40 to 45 miles per hour at times over the last couple of days. Now, right now, where we just showed you, up at Crown Point, the Vista House, still gusting to 54, but that is a wind that's backing down from the extreme numbers that have been even higher. Yesterday, a peak wind of 71. Sunday, there's that hurricane force wind gust of 83. And by the way, you folks in Corbett last night, you hit 69. That was shortly before midnight. One of the reasons we get that wind is when we have the combination of east wind direction and a temperature inversion, warmer up top, colder down low. Excuse me. Yeah, I said that correct. And that's what sets up that wind. Now, right now, Troutdale 19 miles per hour sustained. Futurecast does like the fact that the winds are going to continue to back off. Here's 4:30 this afternoon. Hood River 10, but see the orange colors? That's still the West Gorge getting some gusts between 30 and 40 miles per hour. I think overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, that will be totally gone as that temperature inversion will be completely over at that time as well. Right now, we expected the rain to pretty much move out by the noon hour. You can see that is the case. Still some lingering showers around, but not much. And check this out real quick. This is the Oregon Garden Resort down in Silverton. Bam! It's sunny. Now, most of us still have some clouds. There's Portland right now. Our temperature in the Rose City is 47. It's in the mid-50s in Salem, though. There is some warm spot out there. We'll have more coming up shortly.
Okay, thank you, Rod. Okay, it doesn't really feel a whole lot like winter anyway, but Portland Public students were supposed to be on winter break this week, but instead they're in class making up 5 school days lost during last month's teacher strike. As KGW's Thomas Schultz found, already starting the week, hundreds of teachers and students have called out.
My mom's definitely not too much a fan of it.
Elliot Humphrey is a senior at Lincoln High School, and Monday was supposed to be the start of his winter break. Though after a near month-long teacher strike,
what do we want? Safe schools!
Portland Public added this week to the calendar to make up for lost days. Absences were high.
There's going to be a lot less students in class, and I know there are quite a few teachers who also are going on break.
PPS previously said they realized the added days would be disruptive for families and educators, though they felt it was the best decision for student success. In a Sunday letter to parents, Portland Public Schools said students may have a substitute teacher. If classes get too small due to student absences, classrooms could be combined. Even buses could be different, staffed with a different driver, or even a different bus from another district.
It does feel like we're just getting more and more behind.
On Monday, PPS says 558 teachers were out. That's about 15% of the total membership of the teachers union. That's left some parents frustrated.
It would be nice if we had a little higher attendance, and I know a lot of families aren't there either, so it becomes kind of a vicious circle.
Kim McGarr has a senior at Grant High School. She says it's hard to not feel like this week is meaningless.
Attendance is critically important, so we should be emphasizing attendance.
Still, some students say their classrooms were full.
Neither of my teachers got a substitute for this week.
Though even in Xavier LaRue's classes at Cleveland High, he says it felt a little laid back.
We weren't given any new assignments, just more time to work on assignments we were already assigned.
Thomas Schultz, KGW News.
Now to an update out of the Middle East, where things are getting more tense after militants in Yemen say they attacked 2 ships in the Red Sea yesterday in protest of Israel's military actions in Gaza. The militant group's attacks could upset the global economy. 10% of international trade, including oil and other goods, passes through a canal between Yemen and East Africa. Over the weekend, a spokesperson for the militant group said they'd stand down if real steps were taken to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Meanwhile, anger is growing in Israel after the Israeli military says it mistakenly killed 3 Israeli hostages who were shirtless, waving white flags. The father of one of those hostages had a message for the Israeli government and did not mince words.
You murdered my son twice. You let the Hamas take my son on October 7th, and you killed my son on December 14th. They are not our leaders. They're thinking only on themselves.
So far, the health authority in Gaza estimates nearly 20,000 people have been killed there. The Israeli military says 131 soldiers have died in the fighting, in addition to the 1,200 killed during the October 7th attack. Well, coming up, a Portland foot doctor has been indicted on sex abuse charges, and police say there could be more victims. What he's accused of doing after the break.